The kitchen light flickered as Marcus threaded his needle through worn denim, the 10th pair of jeans he'd repaired that week. Each stitch meant another dollar in the glass jar hidden behind the flour canister. Another step toward keeping the promise that haunted his dreams. "Daddy, how many sleeps until Christmas?" Emma asked from the doorway, her voice carrying that hopeful tremor that squeezed his heart. Marcus glanced up, his weathered hands pausing mid-stitch. "Just one more, sweetheart. One more sleep." Olivia appeared beside her twin sister, both girls framed in the doorway like matching photographs. "Are we really going to the restaurant? The one with all the sparkly lights?" The restaurant. God, how that place had become everything to them. Marcus had made the mistake of walking past Sterling's Bistro with the twins one gray December afternoon. The girls had pressed their small faces against the frosted glass, breath fogging the window as they watched families dining beneath cascading crystal chandeliers that caught the light like captured stars. "Daddy, look," Emma had whispered, her blue eyes wide with wonder. "It's like eating inside a jewelry box. When can we go there?" Olivia had asked, tugging his calloused hand with both of hers. Marcus hadn't had the heart to explain that places like that weren't meant for people like them. Not anymore. Not since the accident that took Sarah and left him alone with two 5-year-old daughters and a mountain of medical debt that buried them alive. "Yes," Marcus confirmed now, setting aside his sewing. "Tomorrow night. I promised, didn't I?" The girls erupted in squeals, dancing in circles around the cramped living room of their basement apartment. Emma twirled until her nightgown flew out like a bell. Olivia jumped on the threadbare sofa, her laughter infectious and pure. "I'm wearing my purple dress," Emma announced. "I'm wearing the yellow one with the flowers," Olivia countered. Marcus watched them, his throat tight. They were so small, so innocent, their entire world contained in simple joys and uncomplicated dreams. They deserved castles and kingdoms and every beautiful thing this world could offer. Instead, all he could give them was dinner at a restaurant. But he would make it perfect. He would make it enough. That night, after the girls finally settled into sleep, Marcus counted the money in the jar one more time. $33, earned through late nights repairing clothes for neighbors, hemming curtains, patching torn upholstery. His fingers, scarred and rough from years of construction work before the accident, now found their purpose in delicate stitches and careful repairs. $33. It would be enough. It had to be enough. Christmas Eve morning arrived cold and bright. Marcus woke before dawn as he always did, and stood in the doorway watching his daughters sleep. Emma sucked her thumb in her sleep, something she only did when she felt safe. Olivia clutched the stuffed rabbit Sarah had made before she died, its worn fur testament to how tightly it was loved. "I'm trying, Sarah," Marcus whispered to the empty room, to the ghost of his wife who lived in the curve of his daughter's smiles. "I'm doing my best." He made breakfast, scrambled eggs stretched with water to feed 3, toast from day-old bread he bought discounted. The girls ate with enthusiasm, chattering about the evening ahead, their excitement painting the dim apartment in brighter colors. Marcus spent the morning carefully ironing their dresses, Emma's purple one with the lace collar, Olivia's yellow one with the embroidered daisies. Both had been gifts from Sarah's mother before she passed, the last new clothes the girls had received. He pressed each fold with painstaking attention, erasing every wrinkle, making them as perfect as his trembling hands allowed. He combed their dark curls until they shone, weaving matching ribbons through their hair, purple for Emma, yellow for Olivia. They stood before the cracked bathroom mirror, turning this way and that, their faces glowing. "Do we look beautiful, Daddy?" Emma asked, her small hand reaching for his. Marcus knelt between them, pulling both girls close. "You look like the most beautiful princesses in the entire world." "What about you, Daddy?" Olivia touched his face with her small palm. "Don't you need fancy clothes too?" Marcus looked at his reflection. The same worn khakis he'd owned for 5 years, the button-down shirt with the frayed collar he'd learned to hide beneath his only sweater. Nothing special, nothing remarkable. But it was clean. It was pressed. Would have to do. "I'm perfect just as I am," he said, kissing both their foreheads. "Because I'll be with you." As twilight descended, painting the winter sky in shades of purple and gold, Marcus took the jar from its hiding place. He counted the bills one final time, $33, then folded them carefully into his wallet. "Ready, girls?" They practically vibrated with excitement, each grabbing one of his hands as they climbed the stairs from their basement apartment to the street level. Snow had begun to fall, soft and gentle, covering the tired city in temporary grace. The walk to Sterling's Bistro felt both endless and too short. Every block brought new wonders through the twins' eyes, shop windows decorated with mechanical elves, a massive pine tree wrapped in golden lights, carolers on a street corner sharing harmonies that rose like prayers into the frozen air. "Daddy, look at the snow." Olivia tilted her face skyward, tongue out to catch the flakes. "It tastes like magic," Emma said seriously, trying to catch her own. Marcus held their hands tighter, memorizing this moment, their joy, their innocence, their absolute trust that he could give them the world. His chest ached with love and inadequacy in equal measure. When they turned the final corner and Sterling's Bistro came into view, the girls stopped breathing. The building glowed like a beacon, every window streaming golden light, the entrance framed by garlands thick with white lights and crimson ribbons. Through the tall windows, they could see the chandelier Emma had admired. It hung in the center of the dining room, crystals catching light and scattering it like handfuls of stars. "We're really going inside?" Emma whispered, as if speaking too loud might break the spell. "Really?" Olivia clutched his hand so tight it hurt. Marcus pushed open the heavy glass door, and warmth enveloped them like an embrace. The scent hit first, roasted garlic and fresh bread, wine and caramelized something that made his stomach clench with hunger he'd been ignoring for days. The sound followed, laughter and conversation, the gentle clink of silverware on china, glasses touching in toasts, children's voices weaving through adult conversations. The space overwhelmed the senses. Every table held a family or couple dressed in their finest. Candles flickered in glass holders. White linens draped tables set with more silverware than seemed necessary. And above it all, that magnificent chandelier cast its benediction of light. Marcus felt suddenly, acutely aware of how little he belonged here. His worn sweater, his daughter's dresses that were beautiful but clearly years old, his shoes that he'd polished until his arm ached but couldn't hide the cracked leather. They were impostors in this world of plenty. But Emma and Olivia didn't notice. They stared around them with wonder, their mouths forming perfect O's of amazement. "Good evening. Table for 3? "Yes, please," Marcus managed, his voice steadier than he felt. "Right this way." She led them through the dining room and Marcus felt the weight of glances, some curious, some sympathetic, some quickly averted. He held his head high, one hand on each daughter's shoulder, refusing to apologize for existing in this space. They were seated at a small table near the window. Emma gasped with delight. "Daddy, we can see the snow." "It's like eating inside a snow globe," Olivia added, pressing her face close to the cold glass. Marcus pulled out their chairs, settling them before taking his own seat. His hands shook slightly as he accepted the menus from the hostess. The leather binding felt expensive, substantial. He opened it and felt his stomach drop through the floor. The prices. Dear God, the prices. His mind raced, calculating desperately. Appetizers started at $18. Salads at $20. The children's menu, he flipped quickly to find it, showed colorful pictures of kid-friendly meals, each priced between $25 and $30. $33. He had $33. Marcus forced himself to keep breathing, to keep his expression neutral as panic clawed at his throat. He turned pages with hands that felt numb, searching desperately for something, anything that would fit their budget. "Daddy, what are we going to eat?" Emma leaned over, trying to see the menu. "Let me look, sweetheart." His voice came out rough. Olivia pointed to a picture on the kids' menu, golden fish sticks arranged like a sunburst, French fries scattered artfully beside them. "Can we have these? They look yummy." "How much do they cost?" Emma asked innocently. Marcus looked at the price. $28 each. $56 total. He wanted to be sick. He started, then stopped. How did he explain this? How did he tell them that he'd failed again, that their one special night was ruined before it began? "Daddy?" Olivia's voice carried confusion now, her joy dimming as she read something wrong in his face. He closed the menu carefully. "Girls, I need to tell you something." They both looked at him, their matching faces suddenly so serious, so much older than 5. "I only have $33, he said quietly, hating every word. "I thought it would be enough, but everything here costs more than I expected. I'm so sorry. I tried to." "It's okay, Daddy," Emma interrupted, reaching across the table to pat his hand with her small one. "We don't need the fancy stuff," Olivia added quickly, though her eyes shimmered with held-back tears. Marcus felt something break inside his chest. "You deserve the fancy stuff. You deserve everything." "We have you," Emma said simply. "That's everything. Can we share something?" Olivia suggested. "We always share anyway." Marcus looked at his daughters, these two perfect souls who somehow found grace in disappointment, who offered comfort when they were the ones being let down. How had he gotten so lucky? How had he gotten so blessed? Are you sure? We're sure, they said in unison, reaching for each other's hands instinctively, the way they'd done since birth, finding strength in being two halves of one whole. A server approached then, a young man with kind eyes and a notepad ready. Good evening, folks. Have you decided? Marcus swallowed hard, his pride a boulder in his throat. Yes. One order of the spaghetti marinara? He'd found it buried in the menu at $18, and 3 waters, please. The server wrote it down and Marcus saw something flicker in his eyes. Understanding. Pity. It burned. Coming right up, the server said gently, then retreated. The girls immediately went back to looking out the window, pointing at people passing by, making up stories about where they were going. Their resilience astounded him. Their ability to find joy despite disappointment made him want to weep. Marcus sat back, watching them, and allowed himself a moment of complete defeat. He had failed them. Again. He couldn't give them the meal they wanted, couldn't give them the Christmas they deserved, couldn't give them anything but hand-me-downs and shared plates and a basement apartment that smelled like damp concrete. What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that 3 tables away, a young woman with auburn hair and sharp green eyes was watching everything. Victoria Montgomery had come to Sterling's Bistro to escape the emptiness of her penthouse apartment, to pretend that wealth could fill the void where connection should live. She'd been pushing food around her plate, barely tasting the $70 entree, when she'd noticed the father and his twin daughters. She'd watched him study the menu with increasing desperation. She'd seen the moment hope died in his eyes. She'd heard the quiet conversation, the way those little girls offered comfort instead of demanding what they wanted. And something in Victoria's carefully constructed walls began to crack. She'd spent 28 years building an empire, following in her father's footsteps, accumulating more wealth than she could spend in 10 lifetimes. But she couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at her the way those girls looked at their father, with absolute love, with complete trust, with joy that didn't depend on what he could buy them. Victoria set down her fork and raised her hand, catching her server's attention. When he approached, she leaned in close, her voice low but certain. The table by the window, the father with twin daughters. I want to pay for their meal. And I want to join them for dinner. Ask them first. Make it clear it's an invitation, not charity. Tell them. She paused, searching for the right words. Tell them I'm alone on Christmas Eve and would appreciate the company. The server's eyes widened slightly, but he nodded. Of course, Miss Montgomery. Marcus had just finished explaining to the girls that their spaghetti would arrive soon when the server returned, but this time his expression was different, puzzled and slightly awed. Excuse me, sir, the server said carefully. The lady at table 7. He gestured discreetly toward a young woman Marcus hadn't noticed. She asked me to extend an invitation. She's dining alone this evening and wondered if you and your daughters would consider joining her. She'd like to buy your dinner. Marcus turned to look. The woman was young, mid to late 20s, with hair that caught the light like burnished copper. She wore a simple black dress that screamed expensive even to his untrained eye. She offered a small wave, a tentative smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She wants to buy our dinner? Marcus repeated, confused. Why? She said. The server glanced back at the woman. She said she's alone on Christmas Eve and would appreciate the company. No strings attached. Emma tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Daddy, she looks lonely. Like how you look sometimes, Olivia added quietly, when you think we're asleep. Marcus felt his daughter's words pierce straight through him. He looked again at the woman, this stranger who was, for some inexplicable reason, offering them kindness. Something in her face seemed familiar in its loneliness, in the way her smile didn't quite dispel the sadness in her eyes. Can we, Daddy? Emma asked. Please? It's Christmas Eve. Nobody should be alone on Christmas Eve. From the mouths of babes. Marcus felt his resistance crumble. Maybe this was what grace looked like, unexpected, uncomfortable, arriving in forms that required him to swallow his pride. All right, he said finally. Yes. We'd be happy to join her. The server's face lit up. Wonderful. Let me help you move. Within minutes, Marcus and the girls were settled at the larger table where the young woman sat. Up close, she was even younger than he'd thought, with freckles dusting her nose and an uncertainty in her posture that money couldn't hide. Thank you for agreeing, she said as they sat. I'm Victoria. Victoria Montgomery. Marcus. And these are Emma and Olivia. Hi, Miss Victoria, the twins chorused, their natural friendliness overcoming any shyness. Victoria's smile grew more genuine. Hi, girls. That's a beautiful purple dress, Emma. And Olivia, I love the daisies on yours. The girls preened under the compliment, and Marcus watched Victoria carefully. There was something rehearsed in her politeness, something that suggested she wasn't entirely comfortable either. So, Victoria said, folding her hands on the table, I don't usually do this. Invite strangers to dinner, but I saw you with your daughters and I wanted company. Real company. If that makes sense. It makes sense, Marcus said quietly. Though I should warn you, 5-year-olds aren't known for sophisticated conversation. Victoria laughed and something in her face transformed. I think that's exactly what I need. A new server appeared, this one older with manager stitched on his name tag, and Victoria ordered without looking at the menu. The children will have the fish sticks meal, both of them. I'll have the salmon. And for you? She looked at Marcus expectantly. Marcus hesitated. This still felt wrong, accepting charity from a stranger. Please, Victoria said softly. Order anything you'd like. This is my gift, to myself as much as to you. Let me do this. Marcus looked at his daughters, saw their shining eyes, felt the weight of their hopes. The ribeye, he said finally. Medium rare. Thank you. After the server left, an awkward silence descended. Emma broke it as Emma usually did. Miss Victoria, why are you eating alone on Christmas Eve? Don't you have family? Emma, Marcus said quickly, that's not polite. It's okay, Victoria interrupted, though her smile had gone brittle. It's a fair question. I do have family. My father. But we don't speak. Haven't for a long time. Why not? Olivia asked, her head tilting. Victoria was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing the pattern on her water glass. Because I let money become more important than people. I let work become more important than relationships. And by the time I realized what I'd lost, it felt too late to get it back. The confession hung in the air, raw and honest. Marcus recognized the pain in it, different from his own but equally deep. It's not too late, Emma said seriously, with the absolute certainty of a child. My daddy says it's never too late to say you're sorry. Is that what your daddy says? Victoria looked at Marcus, something vulnerable in her expression. It's what their mother said, Marcus replied quietly. She was better at forgiveness than I am. Better at a lot of things. Was? Victoria's eyes widened slightly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. She passed away. 4 years ago. Car accident. The words still felt like glass in his throat even after all this time. I'm so sorry, Victoria said, and her sympathy felt genuine. That must have been. I can't imagine. Some days I can't either, Marcus admitted. But these two don't give me the luxury of falling apart. They need me. So I keep going. Victoria looked at the twins, who were now drawing pictures on their paper napkins with the crayons a server had brought. You're doing a remarkable job. I can see it. The way they look at you. The way they speak. They're loved. That's obvious. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I try. God knows I try. Their food arrived in waves. First the girls' meals, which made them squeal with delight. The fish sticks were arranged in a star pattern, golden and crispy. Mountains of fries surrounded them. Each plate came with a side of fruit cut into flower shapes. This is the best meal ever, Emma declared. Ever, Olivia echoed, already stuffing a fry into her mouth. Victoria watched them eat with something close to wonder, as if witnessing a miracle. When was the last time you had a meal like this? She asked softly. Emma looked up, ketchup on her nose. Never. We usually eat at home. Daddy makes good food, but it's different. Less sparkly. Victoria laughed, but her eyes were bright with unshed tears. Marcus's steak arrived, thick and perfectly cooked, juices running red when he cut into it. He'd forgotten what good meat tasted like, forgotten the luxury of food that was more than fuel. He ate slowly, savoring every bite, trying not to feel overwhelmed by the kindness of this stranger. Tell me about them, Victoria said, nodding toward the girls. They seem remarkable. Marcus set down his fork, his face softening. Emma is the diplomat. She can convince anyone of anything. She once talked our landlord out of evicting us by bringing him cookies she'd made from flour and sugar stolen from my baking supplies. They were terrible cookies. She used salt instead of sugar, but he couldn't say no to her. Victoria smiled. And Olivia? Olivia is the dreamer. She sees magic everywhere. She'll sit for hours watching a spider spin a web, convinced she's witnessing wizardry. She thinks the moon follows her home at night, protecting her. She collects pretty stones because she's certain they're wishes waiting to be made. They sound perfect. They are, Marcus said simply. They're the best thing I ever did. The only thing that matters. Victoria was quiet, watching the girls color. My father used to say that about me. When I was small. That I was all that mattered. But then I grew up and started working for his company, and somewhere along the way I stopped being his daughter and became his competitor. His disappointment. What happened? Victoria's face hardened slightly. I became exactly what he built me to be, ruthless, focused, driven. I turned his company into an empire. I tripled our worth in 5 years. I'm on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. I've been featured in magazines as the future of tech innovation. And my father hasn't spoken to me in 3 years. Why not? Marcus asked, genuinely confused. Because he finally saw what he'd created, Victoria said bitterly. A woman who valued profit margins over people. Who fired employees the day before Christmas to improve quarterly reports. Who missed my grandmother's funeral because I had a meeting in Singapore. He called me a monster. Said I'd lost my humanity. And then he cut me off. Not financially, I have my own money, but emotionally. He said he wouldn't watch me destroy myself with success. Marcus absorbed this, seeing the real Victoria beneath the expensive dress and perfect makeup. And was he right? Victoria met his eyes. Yes, he was absolutely right. I am a monster. I just didn't realize it until I was alone in a penthouse on Christmas Eve, eating dinner with strangers because I have no one left who wants to be near me. You're not a monster, Emma said suddenly, having apparently been listening. Monsters are mean and scary. You're nice. You bought us dinner. And you have a pretty smile, Olivia added. Even when you're sad. We can tell you're sad. But that's okay. Daddy's sad too sometimes. Victoria's laugh caught on a sob. You two are something special. We know, Emma said matter-of-factly. Everyone tells us. The conversation flowed easier after that. Victoria asked the girls about school, their favorite colors, what they wanted for Christmas. They answered with the unself-conscious honesty of children, telling her about their basement apartment, about Marcus's sewing jobs, about how sometimes they pretended their plain dinners were fancy restaurant food. Marcus watched Victoria's face throughout, seeing her process their reality, the poverty, the struggle, the quiet desperation he tried to hide. He expected judgment. Instead, he saw recognition. Respect. I grew up poor, Victoria said suddenly. Not many people know that. My father built his first company from nothing. We lived in a trailer until I was 10. I remember eating government cheese and being grateful for it. I remember wearing secondhand clothes and pretending they were designer. I remember what it felt like to want things I couldn't have. What changed? Marcus asked. My father's first company sold for $40 million when I was 12. Overnight, everything changed. We moved into a mansion. I went to private school. I had everything I'd ever wanted and things I hadn't known to want. But something got lost in that transition. Somewhere between poverty and wealth, I forgot what actually mattered. And what matters? Marcus asked softly. Victoria looked at the girls, then at him. This moment. People choosing to be together not because they have to, but because they want to. Daughters who love their father not for what he can buy them, but for who he is. Generosity that has nothing to do with money. The meal continued, stretching longer than any of them expected. Dessert arrived, chocolate cake for the girls, creme brulee for Victoria, apple pie for Marcus. The twins ate with focused intensity, chocolate coating their faces, joy radiating from every bite. As the evening drew to a close, Victoria pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back before handing it to Marcus. This is my personal number, she said. Not my office, not my assistant. Me. I want you to call me. Marcus looked at the card, confused. Why? Because I want to offer you a job. A real job with benefits and a salary and stability. My company has a design department. We create custom textiles for high-end fashion brands. You have skills. I can see it in how carefully your daughter's dresses are pressed, how perfectly the ribbons are tied. You have an eye for detail. I need people like you. Marcus stared at her, his mind unable to process what she was saying. You're offering me a job? Just like that. Just like that, Victoria confirmed. $25 an hour to start. Health insurance. Paid vacation. A real contract. $25 an hour. Marcus did quick math in his head. That was more than double what he made sewing. That was everything. I don't understand, he said slowly. Why would you do this? You don't know me. Because you remind me of my father, Victoria said simply. Before success changed him. Before it changed me. You're doing what he did, raising a child alone, working impossible hours, holding everything together through sheer will. And I can help. So I want to. Marcus felt Emma tug his sleeve. Can we say yes, Daddy? Please? Please, 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 Olivia chanted. Marcus looked at Victoria, this strange, lonely, generous young woman who'd appeared in his life like an answer to prayers he'd been too proud to speak aloud. Yes, he said finally. Yes, thank you. You have no idea what this means. I think I do, Victoria replied, her smile finally reaching her eyes. I think I actually do. They left the restaurant together, stepping out into the snow that had continued falling, transforming the city into a winter fairyland. The girls ran ahead, trying to catch snowflakes, their laughter echoing off the buildings. Thank you, Marcus said again, meaning it more than any words could convey. For everything. For dinner, for the job, for... He gestured helplessly, for seeing us. Thank you for letting me, Victoria replied. For not turning me away. For sharing your family with me even temporarily. You gave me something tonight I didn't know I was missing. What's that? Hope, Victoria said simply. Hope that it's not too late. That I can still fix the things I broke. That I can still become someone worth knowing. Marcus smiled. You already are. Victoria knelt down as the twins ran back, their cheeks pink with cold. Girls, I hope we'll see each other again soon. We will, Emma said confidently. You're part of our family now. Right, Daddy? Marcus looked at Victoria, saw the vulnerability in her eyes, the longing for connection she was trying so hard to hide. Right, he agreed. Family. Victoria hugged both girls, then stood. She shook Marcus's hand formally, but her grip was tight, almost desperate. I meant what I said. Call me. Come by the office after Christmas. We'll make this official. I will. I promise. They parted ways, Victoria to her luxury car and penthouse apartment, Marcus and the girls to their basement home. But something had shifted in the universe, some pattern had realigned. As Marcus tucked the twins into bed that night, listening to them chatter about the best Christmas Eve ever, he thought about Victoria's face. About the loneliness he'd seen there, mirrored to his own. About how sometimes Grace arrived wearing expensive clothes and driving expensive cars, but carrying the same wounded heart we all carry. Daddy? Emma whispered in the darkness. Yes, sweetheart. Do you think Miss Victoria will really be our friend? Marcus thought about the business card in his pocket, about the genuine emotion he'd seen in Victoria's eyes, about the way she'd looked at his daughters as if they held answers she'd been searching for. Yes, he said. I think she will. And he was right. Victoria Montgomery stood in her penthouse apartment on Christmas morning, staring at her phone. The contact information Marcus had given her sat on her desk. Just a simple piece of paper with a number scrawled in careful handwriting. Around her, floor-to-ceiling windows displayed the city draped in fresh snow, pristine and beautiful. The space was immaculate, all clean lines and expensive furniture, curated art on the walls. It looked like a magazine spread. It felt like a mausoleum. She'd barely slept. Her mind kept returning to that restaurant, to Marcus's careful pride and his daughter's innocent joy. To the way they'd shared one plate of spaghetti without complaint, dividing it precisely in half, each making sure the other got enough. To how Marcus's hands had trembled slightly when he'd accepted her offer of help, his gratitude warring with his dignity. Victoria walked to her home office and opened the bottom drawer of her desk. Inside, buried beneath folders and contracts, was a photograph she hadn't looked at in months. It showed a younger version of herself, maybe 7 years old, sitting on her father's shoulders. Both of them were laughing, her small hands gripping his hair, his hands wrapped around her ankles. They were standing in front of their old trailer, the one they'd lived in before the money came. She'd been happy then. They'd been happy. When had that changed? When had she become the person her father couldn't bear to speak to? Victoria's phone buzzed. A text from her assistant. Board meeting scheduled for December 26th. Jenkins wants to discuss Q4 projections. She stared at the message, feeling nothing. Once, that would have excited her. The chance to impress the board, to prove her worth through numbers and strategy. Now it just felt empty. Victoria picked up her phone and dialed before she could change her mind. The call rang 4 times before a gruff voice answered. Hello? Dad. Victoria's voice came out smaller than she intended. It's me. It's Victoria. Silence stretched across the line. She could hear him breathing, could picture him in his small house across the city, the modest place he'd bought after retiring, refusing her offers to pay for something larger. Victoria. His voice was careful, neutral. Not warm but not cold either. This is unexpected. I know. I know it's been 3 years and I have no right to call, but She stopped, unsure how to continue. I met someone last night. A father raising twin daughters alone. And watching him with them, watching how they loved him despite having nothing. It made me realize something. What's that? That you were right. About everything. I did lose my humanity. I became exactly the thing you were afraid I'd become. And I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. More silence. Then quietly, what changed? What made you see it? Victoria thought about Marcus carefully pressing his daughter's dresses, about the way he'd counted his money with shaking hands, about the choice he made to give them this one perfect evening even though it meant he'd have nothing left. I saw real love, she said simply. The kind that doesn't count the cost. The kind that sacrifices everything and calls it joy. And I realized I don't know how to love like that anymore. I'm not sure I ever did. You did once, her father said, and his voice had softened. You were the most loving child. You shared everything, your toys, your food, your joy. You couldn't stand to see anyone hurting. That's why it broke my heart to watch you change. I want to change back, Victoria whispered. I want to be someone you'd be proud of again. Someone I'd be proud of. I don't know how, but I want to try. Are you asking for my help? I'm asking for a chance. Just one chance to prove I can be different. Her father was quiet for a long moment. Come to dinner tonight. We'll talk. No promises, Victoria. But we'll talk. Thank you, she breathed. Thank you so much. After she hung up, Victoria sat in her expensive chair in her expensive apartment and cried. Not delicate tears but huge, gasping sobs that shook her entire body. Years of loneliness and regret poured out, leaving her empty and somehow lighter. When she finally stopped, she picked up Marcus's number and sent a text. Merry Christmas. I meant what I said. Call me after the holidays. We'll set everything up. The response came quickly. You gave us the best Christmas we've had in years. Thank you for seeing us, Marcus. Victoria smiled, saving the number under a new contact name, Family. 3 days later, Marcus stood outside Montgomery Tech Solutions, his stomach churning with nerves. The building was glass and steel, modern and imposing, the kind of place that made him feel small. He'd borrowed his neighbor's good shoes, pressed his best shirt until the collar stood crisp, and rehearsed what he'd say 100 times. Emma and Olivia held his hands, bouncing with excitement. Remember what we practiced? Marcus asked. Polite voices, Emma recited. Say please and thank you, Olivia added. And no running in the fancy building, they chorused together. Marcus took a deep breath and pushed through the revolving door. The lobby took his breath away, a soaring atrium with a waterfall feature on one wall, modern sculptures positioned throughout, employees moving with purpose across polished marble floors. Everything gleamed. Everything spoke of money and power and success. He approached the reception desk, where a young woman with sleek hair and a professional smile looked up. Can I help you? I'm Marcus Chin. I have an appointment with Victoria Montgomery. The receptionist's eyebrows rose slightly. Clearly not many people had direct appointments with the CEO. She typed something into her computer, then picked up her phone. Ms. Montgomery? Your 2 p.m. is here. Pause. Of course. She hung up and smiled. She'll be right down. Please have a seat. They'd barely settled on a leather sofa, the girl sitting carefully, afraid to touch anything, when the elevator chimed. Victoria emerged, but she looked different than she had at the restaurant. Her hair was pulled back severely. She wore a crisp suit that probably cost more than Marcus's car. But when she saw them, her face transformed, the professional mask dropping away. You came, she said, and the relief in her voice was palpable. Of course I came. Marcus stood, extending his hand. Victoria shook it, then knelt down to the twins' level. Hi girls. Thank you for visiting my work. It's so fancy, Emma whispered, awed. Like a castle made of glass, Olivia added. Victoria laughed. I never thought of it that way, but you're right. Want to see my office? It's on the top floor. You can see the whole city. The girls looked at Marcus for permission. He nodded, and they each took one of Victoria's hands as she led them to the elevator. Her office was expansive, windows on 2 walls, a desk that looked like art, comfortable seating areas. But what caught the twins' attention was the wall of glass overlooking the city. Wow, they breathed together, pressing their faces to the window. Victoria gestured for Marcus to sit, taking the chair across from him rather than behind her imposing desk. I'm glad you came. I was worried you'd think I wasn't serious. The thought crossed my mind, Marcus admitted. Offers like yours don't usually happen to people like me. What do you mean, people like you? Marcus gestured at himself, his borrowed shoes, his carefully pressed but obviously old clothes. People without degrees or connections. People living in basement apartments, surviving on sewing repairs. Victoria leaned forward. Marcus, some of my best employees didn't finish high school. What I care about is talent, work ethic, and character. You have all three. I saw it in how you carry yourself, how you've raised these remarkable children. That's worth more than any degree. She pulled out a folder from her desk. This is a formal job offer. $25 an hour, full benefits starting day one, paid vacation, and opportunities for advancement. Our design team needs someone who understands fabric, who has an eye for detail. I looked at the dress Emma wore that night. You pressed it perfectly, no shine marks, the pleats aligned exactly. That's skill. Marcus took the folder with trembling hands, flipping through pages of official letterhead and legal language he barely understood. But the numbers were clear. The benefits were clear. The opportunity was real. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Victoria urged. Say you'll take a chance on this. On yourself. Why are you doing this? Marcus asked, needing to understand. Really? Why? Victoria was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Because I spent years stepping on people to climb higher. I fired a single mother 2 days before Christmas because her sales numbers were down. She'd been missing work to care for her sick child. I bought out a family business and liquidated it, putting 50 people out of work because the real estate was worth more empty. I've done terrible things in the name of success, Marcus. And I can't undo them. But maybe I can start doing better things. Maybe I can use my power to help instead of hurt. She looked at the twins, who were drawing pictures on the condensation on the window. When I saw you with your daughters, I remembered who I used to be. Who my father raised me to be. And I want to be that person again. Helping you helps me remember. Does that make sense? Marcus understood more than she knew. It makes perfect sense. So you'll take the job? Marcus looked at his daughters, at the city spread below them, at the opportunity sitting in his hands. He thought about Sarah, about what she would tell him to do. He could almost hear her voice. Take the blessing, Marcus. You've earned it. Yes, he said. Yes, I'll take it. Victoria's smile was radiant. You start in 2 weeks. That gives you time to arrange childcare, get settled. I'll have HR contact you with all the details. They talked logistics for another hour, schedules, responsibilities, expectations. The twins eventually grew bored and curled up on Victoria's leather couch, falling asleep in the warm office. As Marcus prepared to leave, carefully carrying Emma while Victoria carried Olivia, she stopped him at the elevator. I had dinner with my father on Christmas night, she said quietly. We talked for 6 hours. Really talked for the first time in years. It wasn't easy, but it was a beginning. I'm glad, Marcus said sincerely. It's because of you. Watching you with your daughters, seeing what real love looks like, it gave me the courage to try. So thank you. For that night. For taking a chance on a lonely stranger. Marcus shifted Emma's weight slightly. You weren't a stranger by the end of the night. You were family. Victoria's eyes glistened. Family, she repeated as if testing the word. I like that. The 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparations. Marcus found a small daycare near Victoria's building, run by a grandmotherly woman who fell in love with the twins immediately. He bought new work clothes from a thrift store, spending hours making sure everything fit perfectly. He practiced getting the girls ready faster, mapping the commute, organizing their small apartment to make mornings smoother. On his first day, Victoria herself gave him the tour, introducing him to the design team. They were younger than him, most with art degrees and impressive portfolios. Marcus felt out of place until the department head, a woman named Sarah, the coincidence made his heart ache, handed him a piece of fabric. Tell me about this, she said simply. Marcus held it up to the light, running his fingers across the weave. It's a cotton blend, maybe 15% silk. The weave is uneven here, he pointed, which means the tension was wrong on the loom. It'll create a weak point. This section will wear faster than the rest. Sarah's eyebrows rose. That's exactly right. The manufacturer tried to tell us it was flawless. How did you know? I've been working with fabric since I was 12, Marcus said. My mother was a seamstress. She taught me to see what most people miss. Then you're going to fit right in here, Sarah said, smiling. And he did. Marcus discovered he had a natural eye for design, an instinct for what would work and what wouldn't. His lack of formal training actually helped. He wasn't constrained by rules or trends. He thought practically about how fabric would move and where, about what real people needed. Within a month, his designs were being featured in presentations. Within 2 months, clients were specifically requesting his input. Within 3 months, Sarah recommended him for a promotion. The twins thrived too. The daycare was warm and engaging, with activities and friends and teachers who genuinely cared. They came home each day with stories and artwork and new songs. For the first time they had stability, routine, security. And through it all, Victoria remained present. Not as a boss but as a friend. She'd stop by Marcus's desk to check on him, ask about the girls, share stories about her slowly rebuilding relationship with her father. She attended Emma's birthday party in their basement apartment, sitting on the floor to play musical chairs with 5-year-olds. She brought thoughtful gifts, art supplies, books, a second-hand bike she'd restored herself. "You're part of our family now," Emma told her matter-of-factly at that party. Forever and ever. Victoria had to excuse herself to cry in the bathroom. 6 months after that Christmas Eve dinner, Marcus was able to move his family out of the basement apartment. Nothing fancy, just a small 2-bedroom on the 3rd floor of a better building, with windows that let in sunlight and a kitchen that didn't smell like mildew. But to Marcus and the girls it was a palace. Victoria helped them move, showing up in jeans and a t-shirt, carrying boxes up 3 flights of stairs without complaint. As they unpacked, Marcus found himself watching her interact with his daughters, helping them arrange their shared bedroom, hanging drawings on the walls, reading them stories while he assembled furniture. "Thank you," he said during a break, both of them sitting on the floor surrounded by boxes. "For all of this. For everything." Victoria wiped sweat from her forehead, leaving a streak of dust. "You've thanked me 100 times, Marcus. You don't have to keep thanking me." "Yes, I do. Because you changed our lives. Completely. We were drowning and you threw us a rope." "You would have found your way," Victoria said. "You're strong. You were surviving." "Surviving isn't living," Marcus countered. "Now we're living. Because of you." Victoria was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "You changed my life too. Before I met you, I was successful but empty. I had everything and nothing. You showed me what actually matters. You gave me back my humanity. So maybe we saved each other." Marcus smiled. "Maybe we did." A year after their first meeting, Victoria called Marcus into her office. He went expecting a routine check-in, but found her standing by the window, her posture tense. "Is everything okay?" he asked. She turned and he saw tears on her face. "My father had a heart attack yesterday. He's in the hospital. He's going to be okay, but it was close." Marcus crossed the room immediately, pulling her into a hug. She collapsed against him, sobbing. "I almost lost him," she whispered. "I almost lost him without ever really fixing things. We've been having dinner every week, talking more, but there's still so much I haven't said. So many apologies I haven't made." "Then say them now," Marcus said firmly. "Go to the hospital. Tell him everything. Don't wait for the perfect moment. There is no perfect moment." Victoria pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Will you come with me? Please? I know it's asking a lot, but I need support. And you're the closest thing I have to family besides him." Marcus didn't hesitate. "Of course. Let me call the daycare, make sure the girls are okay for another hour. Then we'll go." They drove to the hospital in Victoria's car, her hands gripping the steering wheel too tightly. Marcus talked about nothing important, just filling the silence with stories about the twins, about work, about a funny thing that happened at the grocery store. Anything to keep her from spiraling. In the hospital room, Victoria's father looked small in the bed, hooked to monitors and IVs. But his eyes were alert, and they softened when Victoria entered. "Hey, Dad," she said, her voice breaking. "Hey, Princess," he replied, using a nickname Marcus had never heard. "I'm okay. Doctors say it was minor. I'm too stubborn to die yet." Victoria sat in the chair beside his bed, taking his hand. "I'm so sorry. For everything. For the years I wasted being someone you couldn't recognize. For prioritizing money over people. For hurting so many people in your name. I'm sorry." Her father squeezed her hand. "I know you are. I can see it. The changes you've made this past year, I've been watching. You're becoming the woman I always knew you could be." "Because of Marcus," Victoria said, gesturing to where Marcus stood awkwardly by the door. "Dad, this is Marcus Chin. He works in my design department. He's the one who helped me see clearly again." Victoria's father studied Marcus with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The single father with the twin girls? You knew about that?" Victoria asked, surprised. You've talked about them in every conversation we've had for the past year, her father said dryly. I pay attention. Come here, Marcus. Let me thank you properly. Marcus approached hesitantly. Victoria's father extended his hand, and Marcus shook it, surprised by the strength in the older man's grip. Thank you for giving me my daughter back, he said simply. I don't know what you did, but the Victoria who visits me now is the Victoria I raised. The one I thought I'd lost forever. I didn't do anything, Marcus protested. I was just living my life. She did the changing herself. Sometimes that's what people need, Victoria's father said wisely. Not advice or lectures but examples. You showed her what matters. That's worth everything. 2 years after that Christmas Eve dinner, Marcus stood in his living room. Their new living room in the small house they'd been able to buy with his salary and careful saving, and marveled at how much had changed. The house was modest, just 3 bedrooms in a quiet neighborhood, but it was theirs. The twins had their own rooms now, though they still usually ended up sleeping together, preferring each other's company. The kitchen was bright and cheerful, filled with artwork and photos. There was a small backyard where Marcus had planted a garden with Sarah's favorite flowers, roses and lavender and daisies. He'd been promoted twice at Montgomery Tech, now leading the entire textile design division. His work had been featured in fashion magazines. Designers sought his consultation. He made enough money to not just survive but to build a life. Music lessons for the girls, family vacations, savings for college. But the biggest change wasn't financial. It was the family they'd built. Victoria came over for dinner at least twice a week, sometimes more. The twins called her Aunt Vicky and demanded her presence at every important event. She'd been there for their first day of first grade, for Emma's first piano recital, for Olivia's art show at school. She'd become woven into the fabric of their lives so completely that Marcus couldn't imagine their family without her. Her father, Gerald, came over too sometimes, especially after his retirement. He'd sit in Marcus's kitchen drinking coffee and telling stories about Victoria as a child, making her groan with embarrassment while the twins giggled. He treated Emma and Olivia like granddaughters, spoiling them with the same thoughtfulness Victoria showed. Books instead of toys, experiences instead of things. Marcus had even started dating again, tentatively. A teacher at the twins' school, a kind woman named Jennifer who loved that Marcus came as a package deal with 2 chaotic 7-year-olds and an adopted billionaire sister. It wasn't serious yet, but it was promising. It was hope. On this particular evening, December 24th, exactly 2 years since that fateful dinner, Victoria arrived early, her arms full of wrapped presents and grocery bags. I'm cooking tonight, she announced. No arguments. I wasn't going to argue, Marcus said, grinning. Your lasagna is better than mine anyway. The twins tackled her in hugs, nearly knocking her over. She taught them that no greeting was complete without physical affection, and they'd taken the lesson to heart. As Victoria cooked and Marcus helped, the girls played in the living room, their laughter a constant background melody. Gerald arrived an hour later bringing wine and stories. Jennifer came too, fitting seamlessly into the chaos, helping set the table while chatting with Victoria about a student they both knew. They sat down to dinner at 7. 6 people crowded around a table meant for 4, passing dishes and talking over each other and laughing at jokes that weren't that funny. It was messy and loud and imperfect. It was everything. After dinner, after the twins were finally in bed, a process that took an hour of negotiations and stories and demands for water, the adults sat in the living room. Gerald dozed in the armchair. Jennifer and Victoria talked quietly on the couch. Marcus stood by the window looking at the snow that had started to fall, just like that night 2 years ago. Victoria joined him, carrying 2 cups of tea. She handed him one and stood beside him, both watching the snow in comfortable silence. Do you ever think about that night? Victoria asked softly. Our first dinner? All the time, Marcus admitted. I think about how close I came to saying no. How pride almost made me refuse. How different everything would be if I'd walked away. But you didn't. But I didn't, Marcus agreed. Best decision I ever made. Victoria sipped her tea. I was so lonely that night. So lost. I went to that restaurant planning to eat alone and then go home and work until I was too exhausted to feel anything. And then I saw you with your girls and something just cracked open inside me. What did you see? Love, Victoria said simply. Pure, uncomplicated love. The way they looked at you like you hung the moon, even though you couldn't afford to give them what they wanted. The way you would have given them the world if you could. Reminded me of my dad. Of how he used to look at me before I became someone he couldn't recognize. You're not that person anymore, Marcus said. You haven't been for a long time. Because of you. Because you showed me what actually matters. Family. Presence. Choosing people over profit. She turned to face him. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, about how we found each other at exactly the right moment. You needed help. I needed purpose. Your girls needed stability. I needed to remember how to love without conditions. We saved each other, Marcus. Marcus set down his tea and pulled Victoria into a hug. She'd become a sister to him, family in the truest sense. We did save each other. And we built something real. Victoria hugged him back tightly. The best thing I ever built. Better than any company or portfolio or success metric. This, our weird little family, this is what I'm most proud of. They stood there for a moment, two people who'd been drowning in different oceans, who'd found lifelines in each other. Thank you, Marcus said, for seeing us that night. For not looking away. For choosing to be brave. Thank you for letting me in, Victoria replied. For trusting me. For showing me that it's never too late to become who you're meant to be. Behind them, Gerald snored gently. Jennifer laughed at something on her phone. From upstairs came the faint sound of the twins talking when they should be sleeping, their voices blending in that way only twins could achieve. This is what happiness feels like, Victoria said wonderingly. I'd forgotten. Marcus smiled. Get used to it. You're stuck with us now. Promise. Promise. The next morning, Christmas Day, was chaos in the best way. The twins woke everyone at 6 a.m., dragging them downstairs to see what Santa had brought. There were thoughtful gifts, art supplies for Olivia's drawings, sheet music for Emma's piano lessons, a new laptop for Marcus's design work, a leather-bound journal for Victoria's newly started memoir about her journey from ruthless CEO to human being. But the best moment came when Emma handed Victoria a wrapped package, carefully decorated with crayon drawings of stick figures holding hands. We made this for you, Olivia said seriously. All by ourselves. Victoria unwrapped it carefully, her hands trembling slightly. Inside was a framed picture the twins had drawn together, a family portrait. There was Marcus in the middle, tall and proud. On either side were Emma and Olivia, holding his hands. But also in the picture, drawn carefully in purple crayon, was Victoria. She was taller than everyone else, and they'd drawn her with a crown because, you're like a queen, Emma explained. But she was holding hands with the others, part of the chain, part of the family. At the bottom, in careful 7-year-old handwriting, it said, Our family. Forever. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. It's the most beautiful thing anyone has ever given me. Do you really like it? Olivia asked anxiously. We worked really hard. I love it more than anything, Victoria said, pulling both girls into her arms. I'm going to hang it in my office, where I can see it every single day. So you remember you're not alone, Emma said matter-of-factly. Daddy says everyone needs reminders that they're loved. Victoria looked at Marcus over the twins' heads, her eyes swimming. He smiled back, understanding perfectly. Later that day, after the chaos of presents and breakfast and the twins teaching Victoria how to build a snowman in the backyard, Marcus found himself in the kitchen with Gerald. The older man was making coffee, moving slowly but steadily, fully recovered from his heart attack but more careful now, more aware of his mortality. Thank you, Gerald said suddenly, not looking at Marcus. For what you did for my daughter. I keep telling everyone, I didn't do anything special. I just existed. She did the hard work herself. Gerald turned to face him, his eyes sharp despite his age. You showed her grace. You accepted help from a stranger without letting pride destroy you. You let her be part of your family when you had every reason to protect yourself. That took courage. More courage than most people have. Marcus thought about that night 2 years ago, about how terrified he'd been to accept Victoria's invitation, how every instinct had screamed at him to refuse, to maintain his independence, to not need anyone. I was drowning, Marcus admitted. And she threw me a rope. Only a fool would refuse. But many people are fools, Gerald said. Many people would rather drown than accept help. You weren't. You were wise enough to take the blessing. And in doing so you blessed her too. You gave her back her humanity, her purpose, her connection to what matters. He paused, stirring his coffee slowly. She was becoming a monster. Brilliant and successful, but a monster. I watched it happen and couldn't stop it. And then she met you and something shifted. She remembered who she was supposed to be. She was never a monster, Marcus said firmly. She was lost. There's a difference. Gerald smiled. That's exactly why she loves you. You see people's potential, not their failures. Just like you saw potential in a lonely billionaire who crashed your Christmas Eve dinner. She wasn't crashing. She was joining. There's a difference there too. They stood in comfortable silence, two fathers who'd found unexpected kinship. Are you going to marry that teacher? Gerald asked suddenly. Jennifer. Marcus laughed, caught off guard. We've only been dating 4 months. It's too early for that kind of talk. But you could see it? Eventually? The Montgomery Spring Collection, he announced, clicking to the first slide, is about transformation. About how we evolve while honoring where we came from. Victoria sat in her usual spot, not at the head of the table where a CEO typically sat, but in the middle, surrounded by her team. She'd changed the culture of the entire company over the past 5 years, making it less about hierarchy and more about collaboration. The board had resisted at first, but the numbers didn't lie. Employee satisfaction was up. Turnover was down. Profits had increased by 40%. Turned out that treating people like people was good for business. As Marcus presented each design, explaining the inspiration and technical details, Victoria found herself remembering that Christmas Eve 7 years ago. The terrified single father counting his last dollars. The 2 little girls sharing a plate of spaghetti. The lonely billionaire who'd almost let pride stop her from reaching out. If someone had told her then that she'd be here now, running a company built on compassion rather than ruthlessness, surrounded by people who actually liked her, part of a real family, she wouldn't have believed it. Victoria? Marcus's voice pulled her back. Any thoughts? She focused on the screen, a stunning textile design featuring flowers that seemed to grow across the fabric, each petal detailed and delicate. It's beautiful. But Marcus, is that lavender and roses? He confirmed, his voice soft. Sarah's favorites. I wanted to honor her in this collection. She would have loved seeing the girls grow up. I thought maybe this way she could be part of it. The room fell silent, respect for a loss they all knew about. Victoria felt her throat tighten. Even after all these years, Marcus carried his wife with him, honoring her memory while building a new life. It was one of the things she admired most about him. She'd be so proud of you, Victoria said quietly. Of everything you've built. Everything you've become. We built, Marcus corrected. I wouldn't be here without you. And I wouldn't be me without you, Victoria replied. So let's call it even. The presentation continued, but Victoria's mind drifted again. Not with anxiety or restlessness like it used to, but with contentment. She thought about the dinner plan for tonight. Every Thursday without fail their assembled family gathered at Marcus's house. What had started as occasional dinners had become sacred tradition. Tonight would be special. Jennifer, now Jennifer Chin after 3 years of marriage, was cooking her famous pot roast. Gerald was bringing wine and probably terrible dad jokes. The twins, now 12 and terrifyingly sophisticated, had promised to actually sit through dinner before disappearing to their rooms. And Victoria had news to share, news that both excited and terrified her. Meeting adjourned, Marcus announced, bringing her back to the present. Great work, everyone. Let's make this collection something people remember. As the room emptied, Marcus gathered his materials and joined Victoria. They walked together toward her office, a routine they developed over the years, debriefing after meetings, checking in, maintaining the connection that had saved them both. You were distracted today, Marcus observed. Everything okay? Victoria unlocked her office door and gestured him inside. Everything's fine. Actually, everything's better than fine. I have something to tell you and I'm nervous. Marcus's face immediately creased with concern. Are you sick? Is it your dad? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Victoria assured him quickly. It's good news. Really good news. I just don't know how you'll react. Now I'm definitely worried. Just tell me. Victoria took a deep breath. I've been seeing someone. For about 6 months now. Marcus blinked, processing. Then his face broke into a huge grin. Vicky, that's amazing. Why would I react badly to that? Because I kept it secret. Because I was scared. Because... She trailed off, struggling for words. Because I was afraid if I told you, if I made it real, something would go wrong. Every relationship I've tried in the past 5 years has failed. They either wanted my money or couldn't handle how close I am to your family. They got jealous of the time I spent with you and the girls. I thought this would be the same. But it's not? Marcus asked gently. It's not. Daniel is, he's different. He's a teacher, works with underprivileged kids in the Bronx. He doesn't care about money, he makes about $40,000 a year and he's happier than anyone I've ever met. He knows all about you and the girls and Dad. I showed him pictures from Emma's graduation from middle school, and he said our family was beautiful. He wants to meet you all. He's not threatened or jealous. He wants to be part of it. Marcus pulled Victoria into a tight hug. Then I can't wait to meet him. Bring him to dinner tonight. Victoria pulled back. Tonight? But I wanted to prepare you all first, make sure. Vicky, Marcus interrupted gently, we're family. Family doesn't need preparation. We need honesty. You've been hiding something important for 6 months because you were scared we wouldn't accept it. That stops now. Call Daniel. Tell him to come to dinner. Let us meet the man who makes you happy. What if the girls don't like him? The girls will terrorize him with questions, judge him mercilessly, and if he passes their test, they'll love him fiercely. You know this. You've seen them do it to everyone from Jennifer to the mailman. Victoria laughed despite her nerves. They did make the mailman prove he knew the names of all their stuffed animals before they trusted him. And now he comes inside for cookies every Tuesday. See, it's a process. Trust it. That evening, Victoria arrived at Marcus and Jennifer's house at 6 p.m. sharp as always. But this time, a nervous Daniel walked beside her. He was tall and lean with warm brown skin, kind eyes and salt and pepper hair despite being only 34. He taught 9th grade English and coached basketball. He'd grown up in foster care and dedicated his life to making sure kids like him didn't fall through the cracks. Victoria had met him at a literacy fundraiser she'd sponsored. He'd been there volunteering, working the registration table, and she'd been struck by his genuine smile. They'd talked for 3 hours that night. He'd never asked what she did for a living. He'd asked about her favorite books instead. Now, standing on Marcus's porch, Daniel squeezed her hand. You ready? No, Victoria admitted. But let's do it anyway. She knocked and chaos erupted. The door flew open, revealing Emma and Olivia, 12 years old, all long limbs and attitude, still identical but developing their own distinct styles. Emma wore artistic overalls covered in paint stains. Olivia wore a vintage band t-shirt and ripped jeans. Aunt Vicky, they shouted in unison, pulling her inside. Then they noticed Daniel. They stopped, identical expressions of surprise and calculation crossing their faces. Who's this? Emma asked bluntly. This is Daniel, Victoria said, trying to sound casual and failing miserably. He's my boyfriend. The silence stretched for 3 full seconds. Then Olivia grinned. Finally. We thought you'd be alone forever. Olivia. Jennifer's voice called from the kitchen, mortified. But Emma was already circling Daniel like a shark. What do you do? Where did you meet? Do you know that Aunt Vicky cries during Pixar movies? Do you like her for her money? Because if you do, we'll know. Daniel knelt down to their level, even though they were almost as tall as him now. I'm a teacher. I met your aunt at a fundraiser. I didn't know who she was actually, I just thought she was beautiful and kind. And yes, I know she cries during Pixar movies. We watched Coco together and she went through an entire box of tissues. Did you cry? Olivia demanded. Like a baby, Daniel admitted. That movie destroys me every time. The twins looked at each other, having one of their silent twin conversations. Then Emma nodded. Okay, you can stay. But we're watching you. I wouldn't expect anything less, Daniel said seriously. Marcus appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. He took one look at Daniel and Victoria's nervous face, and his expression softened into a warm smile. You must be Daniel. I'm Marcus. Welcome to the chaos. They shook hands and Victoria watched her brother assess this man she'd brought into their family. She saw the moment Marcus decided to trust her judgment, saw his shoulders relax. Come on in, Marcus said. Fair warning, my father-in-law is here and he will interrogate you. Consider it a rite of passage. Gerald was indeed in the living room, and he did indeed interrogate Daniel with the precision of a lawyer. But Daniel handled it beautifully, answering honestly, asking questions in return, treating the older man with respect but not deference. By the time dinner was served, Jennifer's pot roast filling the house with mouth-watering smells, Daniel had been provisionally accepted. The conversation flowed easily. He told stories about his students that made them laugh. He asked Emma about her art and Olivia about her writing with genuine interest. He complimented Jennifer's cooking sincerely. He debated education policy with Gerald without getting defensive. And he looked at Victoria like she hung the moon. Marcus watched it all from his place at the head of the table. This family they'd built, now expanding again to include someone new. His daughters growing up confident and loved. His wife fitting seamlessly into their chaotic dynamic. His father-in-law who'd become as much his father as Victoria's. His sister, his best friend, finally finding someone who saw her for who she was. What are you thinking about? Jennifer whispered to him. How lucky I am, Marcus replied quietly. How none of this should have happened. How one dinner changed everything. You mean the Christmas Eve dinner? You still think about that? All the time. It was the night everything started. The night a stranger became family. The night I learned that accepting help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Jennifer kissed his cheek. Good thing you were wise then. After dinner, after the dishes were washed and the leftovers divided, they all moved to the living room. The twins immediately monopolized Daniel, showing him their art projects and stories, testing whether he was worthy of their aunt. He passed every test with flying colors. Victoria sat on the couch next to Marcus, watching it unfold. Thank you, she said softly, for accepting him. For making this easy. You don't have to thank me. If he makes you happy, that's all that matters. Does he make you happy? Victoria smiled, really smiled, the kind of smile that lit up her whole face. Yeah, he really does. He sees me, not the CEO, not the money, not the success story. Just me. Victoria. The person. That's all you've ever needed, Marcus said. Someone who sees you. You saw me, Victoria replied. That night at the restaurant, you saw a lonely person who needed connection and you let me in. You've been seeing me ever since. And I always will. That's what family does. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their assembled family. Emma was showing Daniel her portfolio of drawings. Olivia was reading him the beginning of her novel, a fantasy epic about twin warriors. Jennifer was in deep conversation with Gerald about his plans to volunteer at a community center. Everyone was exactly where they belonged. I have something else to tell you, Victoria said suddenly. About the company. Marcus turned to her. What about it? I'm stepping down as CEO. Not immediately, I'll transition over the next year. But I want to do something different. I want to start a foundation. One that helps single parents like you were. Provides job training, childcare assistance, emergency funds. All the things you needed but didn't have. Marcus stared at her. You're leaving Montgomery Tech? I'm evolving it. The board already approved it. They're bringing in someone younger, hungrier. Someone who can take the company to the next level. But that's not what I want anymore. I want to do work that matters. Work that changes lives directly. The company will fund the foundation. I'll still be on the board, but my focus will shift. Vicky, that's incredible. But are you sure? You built that company into what it is. And now it's time for someone else to build it further. I learned something from you, Marcus. Success isn't about accumulation. It's about impact. You've impacted more lives through your kindness than I ever did through business deals. I want that. I want to help families like ours was. Families that just need someone to see them. Marcus pulled her into a hug. Sarah would have loved this. She always said the best use of money is lifting others up. Then I'll do it in her honor, Victoria said. And yours. The Chin Montgomery Foundation for Families. If you'll let me use your name. On one condition, Marcus said. You let me help. Not just with my name but with the work. Let me be part of it. Always, Victoria promised. Always. The evening wound down slowly the way the best evenings do. Gerald left first, tired but happy. The twins eventually retreated to their rooms, homework calling. Daniel helped Jennifer clean up the kitchen, passing another test without knowing it. And Marcus and Victoria stood on the back porch, just like they had so many times before, watching the stars. 7 years ago, Victoria said quietly, I walked into a restaurant so lonely I thought I might disappear. I had everything and nothing. I was dying inside my own success. 7 years ago, Marcus continued, I walked into the same restaurant with $33 and 2 daughters, terrified I couldn't give them the life they deserved. I was drowning. And then we found each other. And then we saved each other. Victoria leaned her head on Marcus's shoulder. I think about all the things that had to happen for us to be in that restaurant on that exact night. All the choices, all the circumstances, all the random chance. What if you'd chosen a different restaurant? What if I'd stayed home? What if you'd said no when I asked to join you? But I didn't say no. Because Emma told me nobody should be alone on Christmas Eve. Because my daughters taught me that grace is meant to be accepted. Because somewhere deep down I knew I needed help and you were offering it. I was offering myself help, Victoria corrected. I just didn't know it yet. I thought I was being generous. Really, I was being desperate. Maybe we were both desperate, Marcus suggested. Both drowning. And we grabbed onto each other and somehow made it to shore. More than that, we built a whole new world on that shore. A family. A life. A purpose. Daniel appeared in the doorway. Sorry to interrupt, but I should probably head out. Early class tomorrow. Victoria straightened, suddenly nervous again. I'll walk you out. At his car, Daniel pulled her close. Your family is amazing. Truly. I can see why you were nervous about introducing me. They mean everything to you. They do, Victoria admitted. They're the best thing that ever happened to me. If you can't accept that, if you can't handle being part of this complicated, chaotic family. Daniel kissed her, cutting off her worry. Victoria, I grew up in foster care. I bounced between 7 homes before I aged out. I never had a real family. What you've built here, what you've chosen, it's beautiful. I don't want to compete with it. I want to be part of it. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. Really? Really? Though I should warn you, those twins are terrifying. I thought Emma was going to make me take a written exam. Victoria laughed. They're protective. But you passed. Trust me, if you hadn't, you wouldn't have made it through dinner. Then I guess I better stick around, Daniel said, kissing her again. Because I'm not going anywhere. After he left, Victoria returned to the porch where Marcus still stood. He's good for you, Marcus observed. I can see it. The way you smile around him, it's different. Lighter. He makes me feel normal, Victoria said. Like just a person, not a billionaire or a CEO or a success story. Just Victoria, who cries at Pixar movies and burns cookies and sometimes needs to be reminded she's enough. You are enough, Marcus said firmly. You always were. You just needed to believe it. They stood together, brother and sister, not by blood but by choice, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. 7 years ago they'd been strangers. Now they were family in the truest sense. People who showed up for each other, who celebrated victories and weathered storms, who chose connection over convenience. I love you, Marcus, Victoria said suddenly. I don't say it enough. But I love you. You saved my life. I love you too, Vicky. And you saved mine. We're even. Forever. Forever. Inside the house, warm and bright, Emma was teaching Olivia a new piano piece. Their music drifted through the open window, slightly off-key but enthusiastic. Jennifer was reading in the living room, content in her space. The house smelled like pot roast and cinnamon candles and home. This was what happiness looked like. Not perfect, not polished, not anything like the magazine spreads or motivational quotes. Just real people choosing to build a life together, one dinner at a time, one conversation at a time, one act of grace at a time. 7 years ago, Marcus had $33 and infinite fear. Now he had a career, a family, a future built on the foundation of one stranger's kindness. 7 years ago, Victoria had millions of dollars and crushing loneliness. Now she had purpose, connection, a family who chose her every single day. The twins had stability, opportunity, love that would carry them through anything life threw at them. And together they had proof that sometimes the universe aligns exactly right. That sometimes strangers become family. That sometimes one act of courage, reaching out, accepting help, choosing connection over pride, changes everything. Come on, Marcus said, breaking the comfortable silence. Let's go inside. Jennifer made apple pie, and the girls will eat it all if we don't get there soon. Heaven forbid, Victoria said, grinning. Lead the way. They walked inside together, into the warmth and light and laughter, into the family they'd built from broken pieces and brave choices. Behind them, the stars continued their ancient dance across the sky, witnessing as they always did the small miracles of human connection. And in the grand tradition of the best stories, this one didn't really end. It just continued, day after day, moment after moment, choice after choice. Because that's what family does. That's what love does. It shows up. It stays. It chooses again and again to be present. And really, in the end, that's all any of us are looking for. People who show up, who stay, who choose us not once but continually, building something beautiful from the simple, profound act of being there. Marcus and Victoria had found that in each other. And they'd spent 7 years honoring it, protecting it, expanding it to include others who needed the same grace they'd given each other. The story that started with a desperate father, 2 hopeful daughters, and a lonely billionaire on Christmas Eve had become something bigger than any of them could have imagined. It had become a legacy of love, a testament to the transformative power of seeing people, really seeing them, and choosing to care. And as the apple pie was served and the laughter rose and the twins bickered lovingly and Jennifer told terrible jokes and Marcus smiled at his assembled family, he sent a silent thank you to whatever force had put him in that restaurant 7 years ago. Thank you for the courage to say yes. Thank you for the wisdom to accept help. Thank you for Victoria, for this family, for this life. Thank you for grace.